On this historic day, with this historic video, we will be having a historic discussion in the form of a flowchart. This will be a very complicated video, so I suggest you get your cheeseburger, your crappy little taco from the taco truck, your water, your prestigious water, some kind of water, maybe a little bit of beer or some Hennessy, and take a seat. We're going to be covering the 80-20 rule, the black pill, the blue pill, the red pill, the purple pill. We're going to use Alan Roger Currie's philosophy, in particular, Mode 1 Hardcore, in order to demolish some of the biggest trash that has ever been stated in this little corner of the internet. So yes, on this historic day, we are going to indeed have some historic discussions, including with the help of Tammy Sotomayor and Rollo Tomassi. So, at this moment, this video will be the best on this entire channel, with some of the most elite thought leadership I have to offer. So take a seat with your prestigious water and let's get it. So first, let's move to the top left of the flowchart and let's get started. As I've stated to my long-term supporters, I have been saying for a very long period of time, anything related to Alan Roger Currie, you need to view the stuff in full. Watch the videos in full. He is the greatest of all time. And we're going to talk about why that is true. Okay? So let's start off with the paragraph of his biography. This comes straight from Amazon. Sometimes the authors write them themselves. Other times Amazon will write the biography along with the author. Regardless, let's go ahead and start. So, Alan Roger Currie, he's generally considered one of the pioneers of the Manosphere 1.0, 1998 to 2004, beginning with May 1999 when he published his first ebook version of Mode 1. Let the women know what you're really thinking. ARC has been nicknamed the godfather of direct verbal game, advice, and wisdom, and also the king of verbal seduction and kinky erotic dirty talk with women by his female fans and male clients and supporters alike. Now, the first thing we need to talk about is Mode 1, the book, 1999. Now, why does that year matter? Okay, well, during that time period, because I was growing up, I was 13 in 1999. I was there. I understood what was going on in society. Okay, so during that time period, the internet was barely taken off. Yes, there was people that had access to it on some kind of level, but it is not the way it is now. It wasn't as accessible. It wasn't as elite. Okay? It wasn't to the point where you could sit there and get access to information where how a lot of these guys, I'll just flat out and say it, a lot of modern guys, straight up and flat out, it's easy for them to plagiarize a bunch of stuff. They can't do what I'm about to do. I'm telling you guys, this is going to be one of the most elite videos you will ever come across. So get your cheeseburger, get your bean burrito, and let's get it. So a lot of people, they assume, well, you just say ARC. You say ARC's the greatest of all time because his book came out first before a lot of other people. No, 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 no. It's going to be way, way more complicated than that. And throughout the video, we're going to talk about how much really and truly females have contributed to the space. Okay? So, here's the thing. There's a lot of people that we could have put on this chart, but I decided to put Tommy Sotomayor, since that guy likes to jack himself off, talking about how everyone steals from him, how if it wasn't for him, the black manosphere wouldn't exist. Now, he came on YouTube more or less around 2008, 2009. Now, a lot of people would say, well, it's obvious that Alan Roger Currie has contributed more to the space versus Tammy Sotomayor. No. The year is just a portion of the reason, a small portion as to why Alan Roger Currie is the greatest of all time of the worldwide manosphere. You see, there's a difference. There's levels to this game. There's a difference between being a critic versus offering solutions to quote unquote outsmart female nature. So with Tammy Sotomayor, he's always been notorious for really going in on black women, critiquing their behavior, saying they need to do this and this and this. They need to improve in this area and that area. Or they were not going to have good outcomes with men, black men. Okay, you ladies need to try to tamp down on the single motherhood. As Kevin Samuels and many other guys in the black manosphere have said, it's an in-house issue where black men and black women, it's up to them to handle it. So this isn't a racial type video. I'm just proving a point. Regardless of the race of the person, whether it's Tommy Sotomayor or close to any other content creator in the worldwide manosphere, there's a difference between critics and solutions. It's not the same thing. We have to keep this in mind. Alan Roger Currie gives men the elite philosophy in order to outsmart female nature. Okay? You guys keep that in mind. So we move on to Rollo Tomassi, our favorite buddy. With respect to ARC, it's really complicated because sometimes he would consider himself manosphere, sometimes he would not, depending if there was something quote unquote bad going on in society, if you know what I mean. Okay? Another thing is, a lot of dating coaches, historically, they have not wanted to be associated too much with the manosphere, because the manosphere has always been seen as something that's, okay, antagonistic. Okay, there's women and there's guys. From the standpoint of a lot of people, it's like, okay, you're going to pit one group against the other. That's how a lot of people see it. When they think of the manosphere, that's what they think. That's the point. And a lot of dating coaches, they have gone out of their way to avoid criticizing women. They have always tried to portray women as something positive, angels, pure, that type of stuff. And a lot of times the reality is it is out of self-interest. But we're really and truly, we're going to get it in, and we're going to really put that so-called theory to the test and really break down what Alan Roger Currie really thought about this stuff. Okay? So now we have Rollo Tomassi, the author of The Rational Male, 2013. Now, the thing about it is, Rollo Tomassi, there's levels to this game. There's a difference between, and this is where things get really funny. If you listen to him describe himself, like a lot of people, they want to play these semantics game. Well, this is a praxeology, not an ideology. Well, I don't offer prescriptions. I offer this and this and this. No, this isn't dating advice. Yes, this is dating advice. A lot of people, no, I'm not a dating coach. They always want to play these semantics. Now, what I would tell you guys is, the only thing that matters is what is the truth, who knows what they're talking about. That's all that matters. Okay? There's levels to this game. Just because ARC wouldn't fully adopt the title of red pill, it does not mean that's not what his philosophy entailed. A lot of people don't get it because they don't have enough experience with women, amongst other reasons. Okay? Here's the point. So Rollo Tomassi, he has talked about genuine desire. You guys know one of the most elite videos I've come out with so far is a pie chart, which helps break down if a woman has strong sexual attraction for you. There's a difference between talking about the logic of female nature versus logic and process. Okay? Alan Roger Currie gave you the process in order to outsmart female nature. And we're going to break that down. So, within Alan Roger Currie's philosophy, with Mode 1 Hardcore, we're going to talk about how it defeats some of the worst aspects of female nature. Keep that in mind. Like I have said before, within Mode 1 Hardcore, there are black pill elements within the philosophy. Now, anyone that's familiar with the space, you guys know that the black pillars have always been in opposition to dating coaches, because dating coaches, oftentimes their verbiage in their books, their philosophies, and their videos has always included the word game to a significant degree. And a lot of them have downplayed, if not altogether dismissed, how important looks is in the equation in terms of when women choose to date someone, sleep with someone, or the ultimate one, have kids with a man, right? Okay. Now, before we continue, we need to talk about the real life versus online application of Mode 1 Hardcore. Under his philosophy, Mode 1 Hardcore needs to be applied in real life. In other words, you telling a woman over Instagram, I'm going to go over there, let's hang out, let's eat some Mexican bean burritos, and I'll cream on your face. Sending that over text on Instagram, that is not Mode 1 Hardcore for a bunch of different reasons. Mode 1 Hardcore needs to be done in real life in order for the female, you to her, herself to you, to be able to read her body language. Is she interested? Not interested? The vocal tonality of your voice, her voice. The different words that are being exchanged between herself and yourself. A bunch of complicated things, right? Pheromones. Real simple, does she like your natural smell? Is she turned on by it? Not turned on by it? That cannot be measured in any real way online. Even if you send some pictures, even if you send a video, even if you speak into a microphone and send her the audio, it is not the same thing. If we are to stay strict to the definition of Mode 1 Hardcore as it is written by Alan Roger Currie. Okay? Now, as we move on in this video, you guys keep in mind as to who's going to be the expert and the so-called non-experts, other content creators, as we move down this flowchart. And remember, a major part of this video is, by the end of the video, we're going to really see how much females have contributed to the space up to this point. So we're going to talk about the 80-20 rule, our favorite little buddy, our little buddy. Everyone loves the 80-20 rule, the little buddy. So many people in the space have so much to say about it, but most of them are really, really off. The only reason I haven't released a video is because it is extremely complicated. It's going to be one of the most complicated, one of the most elite videos, prestigious videos I ever released in the history of this channel. So you guys be patient with me. We will get there. LMS, another one of our little buddies, which stands for looks, money, status. So basically, a lot of people, historically, it doesn't mean I disagree. Overall, I do agree. But a lot of people in the space have always said that women, primarily, when they choose a man to sleep with them, to date them, to be with them, it is because of looks, money, status. A mixture of them, sometimes by itself. Okay? Depending on what the situation is, depending on the guy. Like I've told you guys, and we're going to cover this in greater detail, the goal never changes. You do whatever it takes to find the women that first and foremost like you for your looks. If you can't satisfy that part of the equation first, you don't get serious with the woman. Okay? So looks number one, which is the primary component of sexual attraction. And then, if you're going to get serious with the woman, start a family, you're going to have to provide the other side of the equation, the MS, right? So if you're a department manager at Walmart and she's a cashier, you make more money than her and you have more status than her. Okay? That's traditional hypergamy, essentially. You guys keep that in mind. And then we get to one of the most notorious plagiarized books in the history of the Manosphere, which is the possibility of sex, no free attention. One of the most infamous talking points in the history of the Manosphere. Okay? So you guys keep that in mind. As we move forward on this flowchart, you guys scroll to the bottom and we get to a couple different definitions. We got to sit there and talk about it before we can move forward in terms of this video. Now, this isn't, okay, I woke up today, I'm going to make up some words, I'm going to make up some definitions, and then I'm going to go record it with my pretty Shure microphone. Yeah, so I can sound smart, so I can get more subscribers. Yeah, that's what I'll do. No, 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 no. I have to attach words. I have to attach phrases to some of the concepts I myself am going to talk about, that I am going to be talking about. This is going to be a very complicated video. So like I said, get your cheeseburger, get your Hennessy, get your Crown, get your Keystone, get something, and take a seat. All right? So let's start off at the top. So what do I mean by a sexual beta? Well, a sexual beta is a male who gets sex, usually infrequently, from a woman, mostly only because he provides quote-unquote resources for a woman. We know what resources are: money, houses, cars, property. Okay, some people could argue status by association. A lot of women around the world, when their divorces from billionaires, millionaires, they become wealthy because of their association with the wealthy men. They didn't make the money. They didn't bring a bunch of wealth into the marriage. They get divorced from a billionaire and they become rich because they divorced a billionaire, or they got divorced. Does that make sense? The next one. We have sexual alpha, a male who usually gets sex from a woman easily without having to provide any or very few resources. Okay? There's some additional context behind these definitions when we get to that part of the flowchart, but you guys keep this in mind. The next one. Resources alpha. A male, usually of higher than average status, who is perceived by women to have obtained an above average amount of success in terms of the acquirement of resources, property, money, houses, cars. Now, the reason I had to make up these type of definitions is because the whole concept of alpha fucks, beta bucks, those words are vague. They're ambiguous. In other words, to some men and to some women, a guy that has a bunch of resources who uses those resources to get sex from a woman, or leverages those resources to get sex from a woman. Some people would see that as alpha. Other guys, especially men, they would see that as a beta provider. In other words, a sexual beta. A woman is only mostly giving you a woman is only giving you, for the most part, sex because she wants to keep the resources coming. Okay? The next one. Looks hypergamy. When a woman frequently is trying to climb the ladder of physical attractiveness / sexual attractiveness, obviously looks is the main component of sexual attractiveness, which is much more common during her youth in terms of her dealings with men. So if a woman is a 5 or a 6, she's like, this guy, he's a 7. Nah. I'm going to go chase an 8. Okay. Whatever. I'm going to swing for the fences and try to get with a 9. Y'all see the logic behind that? And then the last one, really the most important one. So we have a pretty little formula. That's pretty much all that's in front of you. So we got L1, which is looks first. And then if you can satisfy that condition, then you provide, assuming you want something serious, the so-called money and status. If you're a manager at Walmart and you marry a cashier, you're going to make more money than her and you have more status than her. Okay? So the point is, you first and foremost, you lead with looks in your dealings with women. But if you decide to pursue something serious, you understand, especially as women, as they get older, that their main focus is seeking a man of money and status, which would confer resources upon them. You do whatever it takes. The goal never changes. You lead with looks, first and foremost with women. If you can't find those women, or a woman that you for sure knows is sexually attracted to you, you keep it moving. You don't get serious with her. It's just that simple. Keep that in mind. Well, really, I say it's simple, but like I've said before, and I will keep saying it, the vast majority of content creators, they can't teach men how to vet for sexual attraction. Sorry, there's levels to this game. As we move on through this chart, we're going to find out who really and truly knows what they're talking about when it comes to this stuff. I've been saying for a very long period of time to all my core supporters, do not skip the videos that have to do with Alan Roger Currie. Okay? So let's move our way to the top part of the chart, the flow chart. We're going to read the description. Mode 1 hardcore. This definition comes straight from his book, from his videos. This isn't me writing the definition. What you see with the black background and the words that are in white and yellow, and then the word hardcore is in red, this is directly from his books, his videos. Okay? Now, when it comes to this, you guys keep this in mind, that I'm describing the logic of Mode 1 Hardcore in this video. I am not describing the process. I'm not attempting to put the video out there to tell you how to execute it. I won't be doing that anytime in the history of my channel. We're going to discuss that. We'll get to that part here in a little bit. But the whole point is I'm tying the logic between all the different concepts of the Manosphere This is part one, but this is a major part of the major pillars of the manosphere of red pill, black pill, so-called theory. Okay? You guys keep that in mind. So what's the first thing? Well, we're going to read the definition like I was saying. When you approach a woman and within the first 10 to 90 seconds of your very first conversation with the woman, you immediately and straightforwardly let her know that your only interest is in engaging in one or more episodes of short-term, non-monogamous, casual sex with her, usually using R-rated, X-rated, or triple X-rated language. Now, like I've said before, this is one of the most infamous concepts in the history of the manosphere. You're seeing right away why that is. This is extremely complicated, extremely elite stuff. This is one of the most, if not the most elite concept in the history of the manosphere. Okay? Now, let's scroll down a little bit and talk about, all right, you notice before I say anything else, on the left side of the definition, we see the cover of Alan Roger Currie's book, Mode 1. If you zoom in, like I've said before, with your fingers, be zooming in on these videos, pause it if you have to see certain things on the videos. Before continuing the video, just pause it, pinch in, right, with your fingers, pinch in, check out the covers, the definitions, whatever, before you continue on the video. So what you'll notice, nowhere on the cover of that book does it say hardcore. Let me say it a couple times. Nowhere on the cover of the Mode 1 book does it say hardcore. Now, why is this important? The reason it's important, because a lot of people historically in the manosphere, they have always confused the two. So what they would do is they would attack Alan Roger Currie, thinking that they're attacking him for Mode 1 when they were really attacking Mode 1 Hardcore. Mode 1 Hardcore is the most elite, expert level type stuff in the arsenal of Alan Roger Currie. Mode 1, the regular one, is still very complicated. It's very elite. Okay? And then there's Mode 0. There's Mode 1.5. There's Mode 2. Mode 3. Mode 4. His philosophy is very, very complicated. Like I've told you guys from the jump. If you never ever hear your favorite content creators say stuff that's really unique, really special to that content creator, there's a very good chance that all they've done is plagiarize their stuff. Okay? And I'll just flat out say it. None of these females, which is why I don't have any respect for them, none of these female content creators can do what I'm about to do in this flowchart. They just can't do it. There's levels to this game. There's people that are experts, and there's people that are not. Now, we're going to move down the flowchart, and we're going to talk about what they could or could not contribute to the space. Because like I've said before, yes, there's flaws in the information. The problem is it goes against their interest to so-called quote unquote fix the information in the space. That's female nature 101. Women are always thinking about what benefits them much more than men. You guys got to recall when 9/11 took place. Don't take my word for it. Look it up. There was an NFL player when we got attacked. The World Trade Center. He signed up for the military. He quit his NFL career. And he went overseas to defend this country. There's the truth, and then there's the stuff that is not true. At the end of the day, men sacrifice more for the development of this country, for the infrastructure, to protect this society overseas. The reality is, That's just the truth. Okay? Now, like I said, as you can see, before I say anything else, and let me go ahead and say this. Here's the thing. I've been thinking about this for a long period of time. But let me say this. Alan Roger Currie, he respected what I had to say on women. He respected my opinion before I even decided to start a channel. We would have some back and forths. Real cordial, respectful. He would put my comments, he would pin my comments to the top of his chat when he would go live, which wasn't very common. We had some exchanges in the comments section. He respected what I had to say when it comes to this female nature, women, dating, call it whatever you want to call it. Now, the reason I have to add that in is because he didn't like other people to be commenting on his philosophy. In other words, when other people, Alan Roger Currie would say, well, come to me if you want me to tell you how to execute mode 1 or try to execute. Why would you go to other people to get their opinion on mode 1? Well, I already explained why I'm doing this. See, the thing is, I don't really have much of a choice, because as my channel grows, because I've mentioned Alan Roger Currie so many times, everyone's going to go over there and check out his stuff. So I have an obligation to put this video out. I was going to put this stuff out anyways. But as you scroll to the top right of the flowchart, this is the part where I had no choice to include it in my video, which is, if you want to attempt to execute mode 1 hardcore, it is extremely complicated. It is extremely elite. It is as if you're trying to do a crossover into a spin move, jumping off the wrong leg, doing a reverse dunk, and doing that against Michael Jordan. This is extremely elite stuff. There's a reason Alan Roger Currie was an expert and other people are not. That's all there is to it. Okay? Like I said before, there's some advanced, elite psychology behind his philosophy. And this is what people don't get. They don't get it. They never will get it. When they would get on panels talking crazy to Alan Roger Currie, the only thing they needed to do is humble themselves and learn from the expert. There's no other way to put it. Having said all that, this is what I would say. If you want to attempt to execute mode 1 hardcore, you're going to have to do a bunch of stuff first. For me to even, in good faith, for me to even so-called recommend for you to even try to do it. So you need a 50 plus lay count, having done 2,000 plus code approaches. It's not the same thing meeting women, talking to women, social circle versus code approaches. It's not the same thing. The code approaches is what teaches you a bunch, how to read body language, how to have conversations with random strangers. Okay? It builds up your intuition. You guys remember what I've told you guys before. You're not anywhere close to ready to vet women for something serious like marriage until you've done over 1,000 code approaches. And I'm being really generous. But if you do 1,000 code approaches over the span of 10 years, that's not that much. In one night at bars, you could do 10. But if you want to do mode 1 hardcore, it needs to be over 2,000 at least. You need to have gone on over 100 dates, traditional dates, with a bunch of different women, different backgrounds, cultures, socioeconomic, ages, races, all types of stuff. You need to have read all of Alan Roger Currie's books. You need to buy them anyways. I would buy them on Amazon. The next one. And we're going to get to this because all you guys that see, we have this joke over there in the Black Manosphere because I'm in one of those discords. And they're like, well, you're Alan Roger Currie Jr., you're his son. See, what those guys don't get is my philosophy. I completely disagree with a bunch of stuff that Alan Roger Currie teaches. Alan Roger Currie is himself, and I am who I am. One of the main gripes I have with Mode 1, especially Mode 1 Hardcore, is how advanced it is. It is really advanced stuff, expert level stuff. The common person needs to gain some experience before going towards exactly applying Mode 1 the way he defines it. The way he defines it. Like I said, telling a woman over text, hey, I want a cream on your face. That's not Mode 1. Like I said, you need to read all his books. You need to watch his videos on his channel, obviously. His Patreon, if you can get into it. Unfortunately, Alan Roger Currie, he has passed away. But go to his Patreon. Okay? Get your hands on as many Alan Roger Currie videos as you can if you really want to apply his philosophy. You need 1 decade of extensive regular experience. Okay, well, it should be obvious what I consider regular. Going on dates, being vague or ambiguous, the way I am. I, myself, I prefer doing Mode 2, which is being a vague, ambiguous, not being real clear with my intentions, not being manipulative, but being in the middle. Oftentimes, that includes going on dates with women. Other times, yes, she could come over straight to your house, your apartment. But usually that would be more so done over text. So if you meet a woman on a dating app and you invite her over, y'all have some drinks, y'all drink some wine, and then you, okay, yes. Because you got to remember, in order for it to be Mode 1 Hardcore Mode 1, you need to have talked to them in real life. You need to have talked to the women in real life. Almost straight from the jump. Because you met her on a dating app, it can't be Mode 1 under his philosophy. Okay? The point is, we all know what regular means in terms of experience. It should be clear just by reading the definition of Mode 1 Hardcore that it is extremely advanced stuff. Okay? The next thing I would say, the final thing is 99% of men shouldn't attempt it. It's too advanced. One thing that I would say, and I know Alan Roger Currie thought about it, but he just never did it. Because if he did it, it would have watered down his philosophy. I know he thought about it. Alan Roger Currie thought, okay, well, I'll do a new edition of Mode 1. I'll call it Mode 1 Lite, L-I-T-E. I'll adapt it to the modern digital age. Because you got to remember, the first edition came out in 1999. And if that's true, what that really means is, because in 1999, Alan Roger Currie was 36 years old. So what that really means is, he developed his philosophy during the 80s and the early 90s. There's levels to this game. Alan Roger Currie wasn't online plagiarizing and sitting there looking up other dudes' philosophies and then clobbering together his own. No, this philosophy is his own. He's the one that developed it. Okay? Alan Roger Currie wasn't going to all these libraries and, okay, well, I'm going to get this book. And then I'm going to get this book. I'm going to get some scissors and some glue. Yeah, and then I'm going to call it Mode 1. And then 30 years from now, all these guys in the Manosphere, they're going to clown my little crappy Mode 1. Why does this guy call it Mode 1, Mode 2, Mode 3? He was just attaching labels to his philosophy because it's really, really complicated. There was no way around it. He had to attach labels to it. Now, what I would say is, See, the thing about critics of Alan Roger Currie, there's no reason. All right, there's no reason. There's no reason Alan Roger Currie should have had to tell this to people out there. But let me go ahead and say it. It's real simple. If this stuff is really, really elite, which it is, it stands to reason that it took him a long period of time to develop it. I would say it took him over a decade to really fine tune it, to really develop it to what ended the final form that he presented to the world. And I'm being generous. So if you count from age 18 to 28, okay, what that really means is at that point, he made the decision to release a book 8 years later. Now, there's a reason I go so hard at beta male strategies. Alan Roger Currie, his goal wasn't really ever to be a dating coach. He wanted to be more so like an actor, that type of stuff. Okay? The thing about it is, when it comes to this, his brother was the main reason he became a dating coach. His brother's like, wow, this stuff is amazing. You got to put this in a book. You got to copyright it. And that's what he did. So when you got a guy like Beta Male Strategies, and he's over here always stealing people's stuff, especially Alan Roger Currie's, and not really giving him a bunch of credit for his success, I have a big issue with it, because no one holds a candle to ARC. It's like these females, back to the females, you got Real Femme Sapien, you got Just Pearly Things. They're being presented to the world as if they're some experts on this stuff. That's not true. It should be obvious, but it isn't to a lot of people because they don't understand the history of this space. What I'm about to do on this flowchart, they can't do it. What I am going to talk about is how they could correct, so-called correct, some of the flaws in the information if they wanted to. I don't want to say if they wanted to, but ideally, it would be great if they helped do it. How about that? But they're not going to do it. We're going to talk about that. So you guys work your way to the middle of the flowchart, and you see what's in front of you. We got our little buddy, hypergamy. Okay, so I will be doing a more complicated chart on this, and I'm going to address Rollo Tomassi's comments in a video that he made saying that no one ever wants to really challenge hypergamy. I'm going to challenge it in my own way, but for the purposes of this video, I'll just say I generally agree with the principle. The problem is there's too many people that take it to an extreme. Okay? Now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to break it down between two. Looks hypergamy, traditional hypergamy. So for the people that are new to the space and new to this video and new to my content, traditional hypergamy, all it really means is a woman, especially when she wants to settle down, she wants to marry up. We all understand. We've heard that phrase before. Hypergamy is just pretty much a pretty little word to summarize that. So a woman, she wants to marry across, ideally up, in terms of money, career, finances, status is often included in that equation. Okay. And then we got looks hypergamy, which isn't a phrase that is commonly used. I don't want to say I invented it, but for the purposes of this chart, I'm one of the main ones that's going to be using it moving forward. So looks hypergamy, same type of concept. Women are trying to trade up in terms of looks. So if a woman is a 4.5 and she comes across a guy that's a 6, okay, yeah, he's better than me. Nah, I'm gonna keep trying to climb up the ladder. Okay, let me go with an 8. Okay, yeah, that guy's handsome. Remember, she's a 4.5. Nah, whatever, I'm gonna try to swing for the fences. We're gonna go for a 9 or a 10. Now, remember, all this stuff ties back to Mode 1 hardcore. Now, what did Alan Roger Currie understand before other people understood? Well, if I'm Alan Roger Currie and I go to a club tonight, and within the first conversation, the first couple of seconds, I make it clear to a woman I want something casual. You know what I mean? I want something casual. Here's a question I have for you guys. How can she monkey branch? Remember, it's going to be something casual. So the whole logic behind Mode 1 hardcore, because you got to remember, he developed this before the internet really and truly took off in a real way. Now, the first thing a lot of people are going to do, well, this edition came out in this time period. This edition came out during this time period. The truth is, look, 2007, 2006 is when the ebook version of Mode 1 hardcore came out. But you notice, if you read Mode 1, the formal book that was released to the public, the same principles in a lot of ways apply. Just because you had a couple seconds, you had a couple minutes, it's a little bit more complicated than that. But the Mode 1 hardcore is just a souped up version, more elite than Mode 1. But a lot of the same principles apply. At the end of the day, here's the point. Look, if you tell them from the jump that you want something casual within the first couple seconds, the women have to give you an up or down vote. Does that woman think that you're so-called on her level? And remember, you got to first read the body language properly. You got to be super elite at reading body language properly. Listening to her vocal tonality, all this different stuff. So she can't monkey branch. It isn't as if under Mode 2, which is what I prefer to do. Okay, so let's say I'm talking to a woman for a week or two. I get her phone number at the bar. I take off. I am not direct with my intentions. I just keep it real simple. I walk up to her. I talk to her for 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. We chat, blah, blah, blah. Real simple conversation. I get her phone number. I take off. If she meets another guy, let's say I smash her once. Let's say 2 weeks later I have sex with her. Okay? So let's say I have sex with her. So I have sex with her, and then she meets a guy that she thinks is more handsome. Okay? So she practiced looks hypergamy if she jumped from my branch to the next one. But you got to think about it. That's what I'm doing. What he was telling guys to do under Mode 1 hardcore, up or down vote in that moment, in the first conversation in real life. There is no monkey branching. Same thing with traditional hypergamy. The woman looks you up and down. This guy's broke. Okay, he has some status. Whatever. She can't monkey branch in any real way because she's sitting there giving you rejecting you or accepting your advances straight from the jump. And then the other thing is, he's making it clear. He would make it clear to these women that his goal was to have sex with them. Okay? In other words, it's more focused on the looks hypergamy. That's just the reality behind it. We're going to get to that because a lot of his critics would have an issue with this type of conversation when it comes to looks. And in a little bit, we're going to talk about the possibility of sex. It's all tied together. Alan Roger Currie be like, well, if I'm real explicit and I'm real direct with my intentions from the very jump, she can't sit there and lead me on, waste my time. well, I'm not really attracted to this guy. Whatever. I'll lead him on. I'll get sandwiches from him, Mexican bean burritos, tequila, Coronas, Coors Lights, whatever. And I don't have any intention of giving him sex. Or I'll just string him along for validation. He defeated all that crap with Mode 1 Hardcore. Like I've said before, if a woman lets you smash right away, most of the time, not all the time, she is actually sexually attracted to you. But you got to remember, there's some women, they will throw themselves at you. Well, this guy has resources. He has some kind of money. He has some kind of status. This is what I keep telling you guys. You guys that want to get a passport and go to other parts of the world, you still need to know, you need to learn how to vet for sexual attraction. Sometimes they'll throw themselves at you because, well, they sense that, okay, this guy has American status and so-called more money than the men in our country. So yeah, I'm going to latch myself to him. Now, it's comical because you got all these females that are always calling men that have passports that go overseas to meet women, they call them tricks. It's comical how these same females, they don't keep that same energy when we talk about OnlyFans girls, okay? So they don't have a problem with men so-called tricking on OnlyFans girls in the United States, but they have an issue when the resources leave the country to go get spent on women overseas. It's all about resources. Don't let them manipulate you. Don't let them lie to you. Don't let them gaslight you. That's the truth. That's the issue they have with passport bros. Okay? Now, since we just said that, let me go ahead and add this part to it. See, women, they liked Mode 1. In general, Alan Roger Currie would always talk about it. But they didn't like the possibility of sex. Remember, that's the two names of his books. He has other books, but we're going to focus on those two books for the purposes of this video. So women are like, yeah, I want to be told right away. I want to be told right away if this guy just wants to clap my cheeks or if the guy is going to pursue me in a serious way. So from their perspective, they're like, okay, well, I won't get my time wasted. When the reality is Alan Roger Currie, he was trying to filter them out for sexual attraction. We're going to get to that point. Okay? Keep that in mind. Critiquing versus outsmarting female nature. There's a difference. It's not the same thing. So when you have Sotomayor and some of these other guys going in on women, calling them all types of names, critiquing their behavior, it's not the same thing in terms of outsmarting versus critiquing. Alan Roger Currie understood a long time ago that most women were not going to be attracted to you. In this case, him, right? So Alan Roger Currie was like, okay, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to do whatever it takes to figure out women so they don't use me for other stuff, the way he would put it, non-sexual companionship. Like I say right there on the bullet point, time versus attention versus resources versus validation versus non-sexual companionship versus sex. The efficiency, the up or down vote, is what he wanted by using Mode 1 Hardcore. He wanted to figure out the women's motivations as soon as possible and wanting to deal with them. In other words, sometimes, and this is what a lot of people don't get. I don't want to get too much in the process of Mode 1 Hardcore, how you would execute it, but the only thing I'll say is, look, you guys out there that think every single time Alan Roger Currie had a conversation with the woman, he was trying to... No. He would start off with a normal conversation. Sometimes there wasn't going to be anything. And he wouldn't try to execute Mode 1 Hardcore. And obviously some women he just wasn't attracted to. Sometimes it was just a casual conversation that had nothing to do with dating, had nothing to do with pursuing something romantic. Okay? Now, here's the thing, and this is really important. A lot of you guys out there, you guys have an obsession with labels. Well, I'm not going to listen to him because he's a dating coach, or he's a PUA, or blah, 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 blah. The only thing that matters is who has the most elite information, who's more right about this stuff, who can help men the most when it comes to this information. That is all that matters. You guys got to get rid of this thought process of labels, of what a guy, how he markets himself, trying to pin certain labels on content creators. As Kevin Samuels would say, the net of it is Alan Roger Currie could have done elite content in any sector of the space, as you will find out when we get done with this flowchart, this historic video on this historic day. Okay? So like I said, Alan Roger Currie, this is the reality behind it. Let me just flat out say it. He had an obsession with filtering out women in an efficient way, Moto 1 hardcore, who saw him as any kind of beta. He made him do an up or down vote by using Moto 1 hardcore. Okay, there's a lot of women he would think in his head, man, I keep getting led on. I keep getting women to they waste my time. They're using me for attention, for so-called resources, all these other things, and they have no intention of giving me sex. Okay, I'm going to outsmart them. I'm going to develop mode 1, and they won't be able to do that to me. It depends how you define beta. It goes back to the pretty little definitions that I have on the bottom of the flowchart. Well, sexual beta. The woman is just going to give you sex for the purposes of keeping the hamster on the wheel and for providing resources for the family. Or maybe even just a relationship. He didn't want to be dealing with women that weren't attracted to him because of looks being the main component of sexual attraction. He didn't want women to be dealing with him because they saw him as a lick, because they're like, oh, he has a bunch of resources. He only wanted to deal with women that saw him as a sexual alpha. And this is a big problem with Rollo Tomassi's terms that he has in his books. Obviously, rational male, the main one, one of the so-called Bibles of the Manosphere. Some of those terms are too vague. They can be interpreted in a bunch of different ways, which is what has caused him some problems when he defined high-value man in a way that got him, well, I mean, essentially they started clowning him because of his definition of it. I mean, I don't really have much of an opinion on it. It is what it is. Now, let's talk about the female content creators, our little buddies, our little friends. Now, as we have got to the middle of the chart, because we're about halfway done with this video, let's be real. Do you guys out there, my core supporters, do y'all really think a woman could put together something like this? Now, there'd be some people that'd be like, well, that's kind of sexist. No. We've talked about it before, and I'll talk about it some more in some other videos. But women operate out of self-interest. I mean, it's comical because a lot of these female content creators, they come to the space and they are so-called pick-me's, but then the mask eventually falls off their face and they start taking shots at the space despite being so-called pro-manosphere. like I said before, historically, a lot of them, what they do is they build up their channel to a certain level. And then once they get to that level, they turn on the space. Look, here's the point. The point is, if they don't have something unique to add to the space, the way I'm doing this flowchart, what purpose do they really serve? And I will be doing more videos on this logic in the future. Okay. Let's move to the left part of the chart. So we have the possibility of sex, no free attention. So mode 1 hardcore. Remember, everything's tied to this. So mode 1 hardcore, you got the possibility of sex, no free attention. One of the most plagiarized books in Manosphere history, including by Beta Male Strategies. Okay. I've done a bunch of shorts on it. Go check out those shorts where I address it. But here's the thing. This is what a lot of critics of Alan Roger Currie don't get. What they don't get, they should get, but they don't get, is they assume, and I'm about to talk about it some more here in a little bit, but I'm going to keep it simple right now. You got to think about it. He didn't just sit there on some bench. Well, I'm going to sit there. We're talking about, like, I don't know, 1992, 1989. He didn't sit there. Yeah, I'm going to write this Mode 1 book. And then 20 years from now, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. No, he didn't just randomly just wake up one day and write the book. He went through a bunch of problems with women to develop his philosophy. That's all I'm going to say for now. So you notice right there, Mode 1 Hardcore. His goal with Mode 1 Hardcore was to find out. And remember, you got looks, money, status right there, our little buddy. Another one of our little buddies. So, Mode 1 Hardcore, Alan Roger Currie's goal was to find out as soon as possible. And he said different percentages. I don't really want to get into that part. All I would say, a decent chunk of his interactions with women, he would try to execute Mode 1 Hardcore. In other words, when he slept with women, that was a main way he executed his dealings with women. Obviously, Mode 1 as well. Mode 1.5 was something that his brother preferred. We're not going to talk about those too much today, okay? The point is, there's a bunch of different modes that Alan Roger Currie came up with and developed. But with Mode 1 Hardcore, his goal was to find out if women saw him as a beta of any kind or a sexual alpha. Okay. She doesn't want to go sleep with me. Because remember, Mode 1 Hardcore is when you approach a woman and within the first 10 to 90 seconds of your very first conversation with the woman, you immediately and straightforwardly let her know that your only interest is in engaging in one or more episodes of short-term, non-monogamous, casual sex with her, usually using R-rated, X-rated, triple X rated language. Okay? So, in fairness to the critics of Alan Roger Currie, if they saw him as a sexual alpha, and I defined it earlier in the video, all it really means, a male who usually gets sex from a woman easily without having to provide any or very few resources. You guys got to remember, just because a woman gives you sex easily, it doesn't necessarily mean that she's actually sexually attracted to you. Sometimes they're throwing themselves at you, or they're letting you smash right away because they think you have resources. That's why in the definition, the word is usually. The word usually is in the definition. But let's just say, okay, so let's say mode 1 hardcore. Let's say Alan Roger Currie, he walked up to a woman at a bar and she was down, okay? As I've said before, looks is a primary component of sexual attraction. In fairness to the critics, especially the black pillars, yeah, we're going to get to it in a little bit. That's a really important part of the chart. We're about to go in when we get to the black pill portion of the chart. But the point is, if he was able to execute mode 1 and she said yes to his advances and he went to go clap them cheeks later on that night, within the next couple minutes, okay, let's get out of here. Let's go to my apartment or whatever. They would go smash. They would do their thing. But you notice right there, the reason looks hypergamy is attached to sexual alpha. Looks is a primary component of sexual alpha. Looks is a primary component of sexual attractiveness. If she thought he was able to prevent in that moment, if she was going to say yes, she was going to say yes. If she wasn't, he avoided the so-called beta of all types. Okay. And then obviously beta, that can be defined in a bunch of different ways. And that's why we have to do what we do with these pretty little charts. But then the beta, you notice on the flow chart, money and status, obviously women from their standpoint in a lot of ways. Oh, if that guy has money and status, he's an alpha. And a lot of guys, they would agree with that. From Alan Roger Currie's perspective and myself, that's more so a beta. The goal never changes. First and foremost, you find the women that like you for your looks. Right? So we got looks. And then second, the money and status. If you want something serious to satisfy the natural hypergamous nature of women, okay, well, I want a guy that has some kind of money and resources. Okay, and obviously status sometimes is part of it. Let's finish the flow chart, this portion of it. So under money and status, you got the traditional hypergamy, which is tied to that, right? You keep going down under traditional hypergamy. Well, essentially what it starts becoming, from my perspective and Alan Roger Currie's perspective, is it's a sexual beta and it's a so-called resource alpha. Okay, if she's not attracted to you, because remember, it started off, she saw you as a beta. She saw you as a beta. Whatever, he has money. Whatever. Okay, he has money. I got what I wanted, the traditional hypergamy, especially when I get older. Remember, I'm talking as if I'm a female. Oh, like I guess I got traditional hypergamy. Yeah, okay, whatever. I'm not really attracted to him. Whatever. Traditional hypergamy. And she got the resources, and she'll just give the dude a little bit of sex. Good boy. You made $30,000 this month. Whatever. I guess I'll give you sex one time this month. You did a good job. Look, the whole point is he was trying to neutralize their female nature with mode 1 hardcore. That's the point. That's the whole goal of mode 1 hardcore. And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. There's levels to this game. Rollo can sit there and jack off about hypergamy all day long. Before Rollo wrote his book, Alan Roger Currie understood hypergamy. Rollo didn't make up the word hypergamy, but he made it famous in this little corner of the internet. Alan Roger Currie, he came up with the process. He understood the logic behind hypergamy, and he came up with the process, which is mode 1 hardcore, mode 1, to defeat female nature, to outsmart female nature, to neutralize female nature. And that's the logic behind the possibility of sex. Okay? Now, let's move over to the bullet points. So this is a nice little summary. So it goes back to what I've always said. Look, the vagueness of the words alpha and beta. You notice when we were reviewing the flow chart, the actual triangles and the diamonds, how the conversation gets really complicated. There's a reason I don't like those words. This is one of the main reasons I go in on beta male strategies. Not only do I not like him because of all the disrespect he would show Alan Roger Currie, but the other thing about it, I don't like him because what ends up happening, all these people in the space, including myself, despite at this current moment being a small content creator, all these women, they want to throw those words at you. They try to weaponize those words at you. Well, didn't you say you're an alpha? I'm going to get on panels. I'm going to talk crazy to you. You're supposed to just sit there and take it like an alpha. No, 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 no. It has nothing to do with random broads. Beta male strategies, he can define it however he wants to define it. But what I would say is, if I have a wife, which I don't, but if I had a wife, those stupid words, masculine frame, all those stupid phrases, those concepts have more so to do in your dealings with your woman, your girlfriend, your wife. Has nothing to do with some random woman that's running her mouth on a panel. No, I'm not going to sit there and just listen to you run your mouth. And then the other thing is, like I've said before, I won't be having many, if any, so-called quote-unquote debates with women. They're not here to have a serious conversation. They're just here to run interference. By the vast majority of men, content creators, including myself, they don't have any respect for female content creators. I don't. Jason Black, he has ran his mouth about a bunch of different female content creators. Obviously, he made Just Pearly things look stupid, but she's not the only one. I mean, there's been a bunch of women that have pulled up on him because he's been smoking them. Courtney Michelle from the Black Manosphere, that's another one. This other girl, woman by the name of Olivia Alexa, he has punked her. She pulled up on him during a live show because he has a big following. He's a really elite content creator. Go follow him. The Business, Jason Black. Go follow him. A real elite content creator. The point is, people weaponize these terms, both men and women. They weaponize the words alpha and beta. So, in terms of Mode 1 Hardcore, the whole purpose, pump and dump, efficiency, efficiency, efficiency. The goal for Alan Roger Currie was to get an up or down vote from a woman for casual, non-monogamous sex. As you can notice, if you ever have to sit there, just keep that in mind. That's part of the definition of Mode 1 Hardcore. One or more episodes of short-term, non-monogamous casual sex. Okay? Like I've said before, I myself, I have to add this caveat. Just because she slept with you right away doesn't mean she is for sure sexually attracted to you. Okay? Most of the time it does. But sometimes they're really smart. And we're going to talk about that. There's some women, they sniffed that you got resources. So let's put it this way. And this is the next bullet point. What I mean by temporary beta. Remember, Mode 1 Hardcore has to do with casual sex. So let's say Alan Roger Currie would walk up to a woman and she sensed he came for money. She was like, this guy is wearing $300 shoes. Okay, whatever, I'm going to let him smash. Let's say he made a mistake. Let's put it that way. Let's say when he approached her, he made a mistake. He read her wrong because remember, he had an obsession with avoiding dealing with women that saw him as some kind of beta. I have an obsession with it as well. I mean, that's just what it is. But not the way he did. Not the way he did under his philosophy. Okay? So let's say he read her wrong. And she chose him more so because of it. She perceived that he had money, some kind of status. Okay. But at the end of the day, he made the mistake in the very beginning. That very first day, that very first night he met her. He pumped and dumped her. And she never got access to his resources. Okay? So yeah, she might have seen him as a temporary beta. But he outsmarted her because the way he applied Mode 1 hardcore. Like I've said before, if a woman is sexually attracted to you, you're not a beta provider. So you get with the woman, you marry her or whatever, and you vetted her for looks, sexual attraction, looks being the primary component of sexual attraction, and then you provide the so-called resources. You notice my pretty little formula. Looks first, then you add money and resources. Money and status, resources second. You won the game and she won the game. She got the LMS. That's really what it comes down to. You combine the letters and you get LMS. But the looks always comes first. Now to summarize this part of the chart. So time, attention, / validation / resources / non-sexual companionship, i.e. betas of all types. That's the whole concept. That's the whole principle behind the possibility of sex. It's a woman using you for pretty much everything, but okay, I'm going to sit there, I'm going to float the carrot. Nah. Let me get another dinner out of him. Nah. Let me get some Mexican bean burritos. Nah. Those are too crappy. Nah. He's gonna take me to the nicer restaurant to get better Mexican burritos. Nah, we're gonna go to the best Mexican restaurant in town. Stringing along a guy. Adam Roger Curry's like, nope, you're not doing that to me. Mode 1 hardcore. Mode 1. When I first meet you during the first conversation on the first night, the first day, I'm going to make my intentions clear. That I just want to... You're not going to sit there and string me along with the possibility of sex. His goal was to find the women that saw him as a sexual alpha. So here's the point. At this point of the chart, it should start becoming obvious that Alan Roger Currie, it's comical how all these people would take shots at him, but it should be clear by now the significant red pill elements to his philosophy. He wasn't just he's a little bit red pilled. No, the guy was hardcore red pill, but he couldn't sit there and be preaching that, and he didn't want that label from people because he knew there was a bunch of negative connotations behind the phrase. So he would distance himself sometimes from the space, and then sometimes he would have a bunch of conversations, be on a bunch of panels with people. He had no choice. At the end of the day, look, here's the net of it. Especially nowadays, if you're going to be talking about this stuff, in many ways, there's no way around it. You're going to be considered part Manosphere, part of the Manosphere, right? Now, let's move. It's time to really take it up a notch. As you can see, we're scrolling up to the far right, the top right of the flowchart. Okay? Remember, Mode 1 hardcore is one of the most notorious, infamous concepts in Manosphere history, and you're seeing why. It is really advanced stuff. It is expert type stuff. It has a bunch of elite psychology behind it. So when people would sit there and mock him, you can't be serious. You're telling me to walk up to a woman. Hey, I want you to cream on my eggplant. Let's go. Let's get out of here. Alan Roger Currie never in any kind of video said, well, you should do that with every woman that you ever have a conversation with. If you guys have to be told to not try to execute Mode 1 hardcore with the woman that's a cashier at Walmart when you have 17 people behind you, you're lost. You're behind. You're just beyond lost. right? So you notice right here, look, you notice as part of the arrow, I have the word seconds in big print. Okay, so remember, Mode 1 was written, the book, the first edition was written in 1999. The ebook, Mode 1 Hardcore, 2006, 2007. Okay. At the end of the day, Mode 1 and Mode 1 Hardcore, the principles are very similar. Okay. A big difference between the two is the time, in terms of the time of when you attempt to execute it. Okay. Then obviously you tempo down the language, which is on Mode 1 Hardcore. Obviously it's the rated R, that type of language. The point is, look, like I said before, there's elite level psychology behind Mode 1 Hardcore. We're going to read this psychology today, a portion of the article. Let me add that caveat to this part of the conversation. This is not the full article. It doesn't matter. It's going to be clear why it doesn't matter in 2 minutes. So let's start off at the top. You noticed it was first published in January 1st, 2008. All right. It says right there, last reviewed August 25th, 2016. So pretty much 8 years later, it was reviewed. So they had 2 times, the PhDs and the editors. I'm sure they are PhDs as well. They're highly educated. They could have changed the words in this article. They chose not to. Okay? So we're going to start. Attraction is a symphony in which many different instruments, wit, voice, charisma, class, and body language play a part. That is really weird. Nowhere in that little sentence does it say looks. Nowhere does it say money. Nowhere does it say status. Now, in fairness to psychology today, they're talking about both genders. You have to assume that they're not sitting there talking about, okay, female to male or male to female, what they're attracted to. It's more generalized. Okay, whatever. But let's keep it going. When you're attracted to someone, your whole body switches on. It's like hearing the first bars of your favorite song. Like the songs that I use in my outro, my intro, Bone Thugs and Harmony, right? That's who I use. So, and though it might feel like magic, it isn't random. It's just too complex for us to discern the harmony. Attraction is so subtle that we would trip over our own feet if we were aware of every move. That's why our brains have set us up to draw instantaneous inferences from tiny nuances of behavior, what psychologists call thin slices of judgment. We form first impressions of another's attractiveness in a tenth of a second, generating a symphonic burst of desire in which everything from voice to wit plays a part. So, like I've said before, Alan Roger Currie was a PhD before the PhDs really and truly started discussing anything related to the Manosphere. Someone like Michael Sartain, he'd sit there and say, well, Dr. Buss came out with his first edition of the book in 1994, so yeah, he came first. No. He can sit there and jack off all these PhDs all he wants. At the end of the day, Alan Roger Currie, Rollo Tomassi, the 3 founders of the Manosphere, Obsidian, Angry Man, O'Shea Duke Jackson, Tom Likas, all these other content creators, Roosh V, a notorious PUA, they're the ones that really influenced the trajectory of the space. It wasn't Dr. Buzz. It wasn't those type of PhDs. That's just the truth. Look, here's the point. These clowns, when they write this type of stuff, these so-called PhDs in psychology today, when they don't talk about looks, they try to avoid talking about anything that would be considered so-called red pill. They do a disservice to men out there and women by avoiding what's actually the truth. The truth is the truth. When they put that trash out there, they're causing a bunch of problems in society. Okay? We're going to get to a very important part of this conversation. You guys keep that in mind. Okay? What I'm saying right now. Like I said, the whole point of this article is, okay, Alan Roger Currie, within his Mode 1 hardcore, Mode 1 philosophy, he knew that women right away, they measured him up and down, and he knew that women knew right away if they wanted to sleep with them. And Alan Roger Currie, he played to that. He used that knowledge that he developed over a long period of time so he wouldn't be used by women that saw him. Okay, he's a beta. Okay, whatever. I'm going to use him for resources. I'm going to use him for Mexican bean burritos. I'm going to have him give me all this validation and free attention. But I'm never going to give him sex. No, 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 no. Alan Roger Currie would punk all these females. He was too smart for them. Too intelligent. He figured out a way to outsmart women when it comes to that. So like I said, my goal on my channel is to give you the information. Okay? It's like I say at the end of many videos. Outsmart female nature, or female nature will outsmart you. It should start becoming crystal clear that Alan Roger Currie was as hardcore red pill as you could imagine, as you can be. Way more red pill than a lot of these dudes. A lot of red pill type logic is behind his philosophy. Okay? All this stuff about hypergamy. Review the bullet points. Review the flowchart. Review this video. Watch it a couple times. And then really and truly sit there and think about the logic. Okay? So you notice we have our little buddy. And I do have some support from the black pillars. Like I've said before, obviously I say in my videos that looks is number one. Looks is the primary component of sexual attraction. It's number one. Women know within seconds if they're sexually attracted to you. Not all the time, most of the time. Okay, it's just a general principle. Nothing is absolute. But in general, that is true. That's one of the main pillars of Mode 1 hardcore. And it tells you right there in Psychology Today. Okay. The same principle is embedded in both. So when it comes to the black pill, look. Obviously, let me just summarize it. Alan Roger Currie's look. And a lot of people a bunch of black pillars had an issue with him. And we're going to talk about that because we're getting into the meat and potatoes of this flow chart. Let me go down the bullet points in order and we're going to get to it. Okay? In terms of Psychology Today, since we brought him up, there's an infamous article that went viral a year ago. The name of the article was What's Behind the Rise of Lonely Single Men. It was an article written by Dr. Greg Matos. All you got to do is Google it. It's going to be crystal clear that why it went viral, and you're going to see that it went viral. Okay? So here's the thing. Obsidian, one of the three founders of the Black Manosphere, he did a video on it, essentially reviewing it. And he talked about how he wanted to challenge Dr. Greg Matos, to a debate. He messaged him on TikTok, Instagram, and Dr. Greg Matos blocked him. Now, this is what I was telling Michael Sartain. One of you guys have seen the debates. Well, not one of you guys. Some of you guys have seen the debate that I did with him and Playing with Fire. One of the things I told him, okay, if these guys know so much, why don't they debate the heavy hitters of the Manosphere? And he starts making all these excuses. Well, they're ivory tower. They're over there in the ivory tower. They're not really and truly red pill. It's just a bunch of garbage. evolutionary psychology, there's a bunch of overlap with the traditional conversations that have been had in the manosphere. At the end of the day, he can sit there and play all these mental gymnastics. The core manosphere, all the guys that are considered as part of the manosphere, Obsidian, Angerman, O'Shea Duke Jackson, Kevin Samuels, Roosh V, all the different pillars of the manosphere over the 30 years that it's been around, more or less. Tom Likas, a radio host, he was informally one of the so-called founders of the space, highly regarded. Obsidian gives him a bunch of credit as being an inspiration. At the end of the day, it's a bunch of garbage. A lot of guys that are PhDs, one of their main goals in life is to become known worldwide for their scholarship and to be seen as an expert in their fields. They don't step to the elite thinkers of the manosphere because they know they would get smoked. I don't care how many PhDs they have. When I do the full video of the 80-20 rule, none of those clowns are ever going to hold a candle to it. It's going to be a really complicated flowchart. This one's pretty complicated, but when I sit there and I do that one, it's going to be extremely complicated. At the end of the day, they don't want the blowback from the feminist when it comes to the liberal arts. In a lot of colleges, psychology being part of the liberal arts, most of them, a lot of them, the females coming out of that part of the universities are going to be feminist. They're going to be really liberal. In other words, if he started dabbling in these type of conversations, in these debates with red pillars, he's putting at risk his career. At the end of the day, I don't want to hear any of this coulda, woulda, shoulda. They can't hold a candle to the elite thinkers in the manosphere, including myself. I'll call myself an elite thinker. When someone else can put together a flowchart like this and explain why another content creator is a so-called founder of the manosphere, because this is just one part. There's a reason I've been big upping Alan Roger Currie for every single opportunity that I have had. It should be pretty clear by now, but we're not done with this video. Okay, at the end of the day, the Dr. Greg Matos, he said no, he blocked Obsidian, he didn't want to debate him. Okay? Alright, so now we got to the black pill definition. So obviously Wheat Waffles is one of the most prominent guys in that sector. But because, and I know he can't, because he can't vet for sexual attraction, he can't teach men how to vet for sexual attraction, I'm the one that gets to make up the definition for the sake of this document, this video. My definition is real simple. Looks equals height plus body plus face. Okay? You got some of these guys in that sector, and I'm dead serious for the people that are not from the manosphere. You got some of those dudes measuring jawlines with $300 rulers from Amazon. I'm not fronting. Go to Amazon and you will see some rulers really and truly cost that dollar amount. Obviously, on the next line, we got looks versus money and status versus looks. Subscript 1. If that condition is satisfied and you're thinking of pursuing something serious with the woman, okay, then you're going to have to, in theory, most of the time, the vast majority of the time, you're going to have to cover the second part, the traditional hypergamous nature of women, which is to provide the money and status, right? And that's something a lot of you guys that are black pillars, you don't really get it. You think over the long term that a dime piece, that there's endless dime pieces that are going to stay with you, be with you, just because they find you very handsome, just because they're really attracted to you in terms of looks, body, face, height. Think about it from their perspective. If they can find a guy that has decent looks and has money or status or all of it, why is she going to stay with you? She would have to be deeply in love, or you would have to have a personality that she really, 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 really is just really rocking with. That's a very small percentage of men that could over the long term, lock down a dime piece with only their looks. Okay? That's just the reality behind it. So I think at this point, it has become pretty evident why Alpha Male Strategies has plagiarized so much of Alan Roger Currie's stuff. Okay? Now, what that clown can't do is tie all this stuff together. It is one of the main reasons I don't have respect for a lot of content creators, including himself. Because I know they can't tie all this stuff together. And if they can't tie a lot of this stuff together, what that usually means is they really and truly do not have that much experience with women, or they are not very intelligent. It doesn't really matter. But a guy like him is leading a bunch of men astray, including some of you guys in the audience that are going to hear this video. Do whatever you want. When I make these type of comments, I do not say them out of self-interest. You're going to support whoever you want to support. These videos that I do on beta male strategies, I don't do them out of self-interest. I don't like the dude. I don't respect the dude. I have an issue with guys like him being presented to the world as if they're some expert on this stuff when they are not. And I will prove it in the future with more videos on the clown. Now, when it comes to the next bullet point, I think it has become clear that Alan Roger Currie's philosophy has a mix of all these different kind of so-called pills. Like I said before, there's some black pill elements to his philosophy. At the end of the day, the reality is, if a woman is giving you a so-called up or down vote within the first couple seconds, first couple minutes of dealing with her, and you're being super direct with your intentions, essentially mode 1, the reality is, part of that up or down vote is your looks. That's just the truth. Now, when it comes to you black pillars, you dudes that really and truly think that 100% of the reason that a woman deals with a guy is because of looks, like I've told you guys, if you deal with such women, if you actually were to come across such a woman, all that really means is she's going to be super shallow. She's going to be a jerk. You start losing your looks. You start slipping up in the gym. She's going to start becoming passive aggressive, disrespectful. She's going to make your life difficult. And that is something that you guys don't think about. Now, before I do this breakdown, let me say this. I myself, I do not believe, and I for sure, as a fact, know that for the vast majority of women, it is not 100% about looks. But here's the point before I continue. You guys that think it's 100% looks, I don't want association with you type of dudes because you're extreme. Just think about it from a logical perspective. For you guys to really and truly believe that, you are beyond lost. Any kind of extreme version of any of these so-called pills, you're going in the wrong direction. You don't have enough experience with women. You haven't dealt with the right content creators. You are not broadening your horizons to get the accurate information to make the best decisions for your dating life. In terms of denialism, I don't want to be associated with that either, because obviously that's not my philosophy. My goal is to give guys, as I have always said, the most accurate, elite information in the world, in the manosphere, in order for you guys to vet women for sexual attraction, and then eventually you can do whatever you want with that information. Casually date, seriously date, get in a marriage, get in a relationship, whatever. That goal never changes. And that's the thing about it. Alan Roger Currie didn't want to be associated with you dudes that are extreme. That's just the reality behind it. But the point is, you guys that would... But the point is, the reality is, you guys that would run your mouth to Alan Roger Currie, it's comical because his philosophy, it is clear that there is significant black pill elements within it. Once you would run your mouth to Alan Roger Currie or about Alan Roger Currie, I knew you didn't have that much experience with women. You don't then, and you probably still do not now. It's just really that simple. Anyways, let me go ahead and say this. All right, so from age 18 to 25, when a woman is younger, the estimate that I give you guys, and I really didn't want to do this, but I might as well, because later on, you guys are going to play the gotcha game as this channel grows. But this is what I would tell you. When women are young, from age 18 to 25, 26, 27, it has become more complicated because of social media. But I would say for most women, anything after 50% is most, but for most women, when a woman chooses a guy, 70 to 80%, more or less, of the reason she's choosing said guy is because of looks. And then it is rounded out by other stuff. Okay, a little bit of money here and there, a little bit of status. Maybe the guy is a football player on campus. Okay, maybe he has a decent personality, right? It's rounded out. Now, this is where things get a little bit complicated. There is a percentage of women out there, 10%, 20%, during that age range, who's the majority of the reason she's with the guy is because of his personality, because of love. Some of you guys are never going to believe what I just said. You guys that don't believe that, you are the type of man I don't really want to be having these conversations with. There is a percentage out there of women during that time period, during that age range, that choose men in large part because of their personality or love. And then, obviously, there's certain women during that time range, during that age range, where they choose men because of money or status. In other words, that is the primary reason she's choosing said men. There's no way to quantify that. Is it 10%? Is it 20%? There's some women during that time range, that age range, where they're smart enough to, okay, I'm going to look for resources. I'm going to look for a provider at a young age. In other words, they're seeing the writing on the wall. I'm not going to end up with like all these other older females. I'm going to chase resources and security at a younger age. And what I would tell you guys, this is where I come into play. This is what a lot of you guys don't get. Just because you get with a younger woman that doesn't have kids, that's young and pretty, it doesn't necessarily mean that she's not a gold digger or that she's not being with you because of your so-called resources. This stuff is extremely complicated. Like I said before, there's a reason a lot of guys like beta male strategies cannot and do not teach this stuff because it is extremely complicated. Now, when it comes to the older women, with respect to them, when you get to the women that are late 20s, early 30s, y'all know what time it is. If they have a kid, usually, and even then, even if they don't have a kid, it starts tilting heavily in the other direction. For most of them, 70, 80% of the reason they're with the guys because of resources. Traditional hypergamy, right? There are some women 10%, 20%, 7%, 12% of women that are older, whereby the majority of the reason they are with the guy is because of their personality or love. You notice how this conversation got really complicated right away. I will be discussing this more in the future, but I'm just giving you guys a general guideline. Okay? Now, here's the thing. We got the other pills in that little bullet point. So we got the blue pill. Now, with respect to the blue pill, remember, like I said, Alan Roger Currie's philosophy is all encompassing. So when you got this old concept of game and mouthpiece and charm, all that type of stuff, this is what a lot of those guys don't want to admit, a lot of dating coaches. They can sit there and play mental gymnastics all they want. Those concepts are essentially blue pill in nature. If it's not money, if it's not status, if it is not looks that a woman is choosing you for, okay, first question I have for them, why is a woman choosing you for then? What are her reasons? Personality? Okay, for a lot of guys, personality is under the umbrella of blue pill. And this is where the logic starts falling apart for a bunch of people. The reality is, the truth is, the reasons that a woman chooses a guy is extremely complicated. Yes, there's things that are in general true, depending on the age of the woman, but it still is complicated. Okay? Now, like I said, Alan Roger Currie has a book that talks about all the different stuff. Okay? Talks about mouthpiece and charm and game and all that other stuff. You guys can go read that book if you want to. Now, in terms of the red pill, it has become evident amongst all these different parts of the chart. Hypergamy and all these different elements are displayed on this flow chart, and how Alan Roger Currie would so-called weaponize his knowledge of female nature and the red pill to get better outcomes with women, right? He's like, okay, well, this woman's going to so-called use me for attention, resources, non-sexual companionship, all that good stuff, time, attention, validation. So he's like, okay, mode 1 hardcore. Remember, it always goes back to mode 1 hardcore. I'll make her give me an up or down vote within the first couple seconds of her and I having a discussion. And the reality is, part of that up or down vote was his looks. That's just the truth. On this channel, we tell the truth. We don't sit here and just make stuff up. We tell the truth regardless of how ugly it is. Now, the thing you guys don't get, and we're going to get to that point here in a little bit, but here's the thing. The last one is the purple pill. The purple pill, basically all it means is when a guy that is red pill aware, and he decides to get with the woman in a serious relationship, regardless. Now, you got to think about it from this perspective. If Alan Roger Currie, and he would disagree with certain elements of what I'm about to say, we have some disagreements, and this is an area where we have some disagreements. But look, the only thing I would say is, if a woman is going to have sex with you right away, there's a higher than average chance that she's actually sexually attracted to you. Looks being the main component of sexual attraction. In other words, okay, you were red pill aware, you understood all the different elements of it. Okay, well, how much can she really find out about me in the first couple seconds of our discussions? In other words, if she's sleeping with you right away, the first night, okay, one night stand, the first time y'all hang out, the vast majority of time, the main reason, a major component, was your looks. And then you take it from there. Now think about it. Think about how that mirrors my own philosophy. The looks comes first, right? L1, if that condition is met and you want something serious, then you have to provide the so-called money and status. You notice how that mirrors the so-called purple pill philosophy? This part of the discussion is extremely complicated. You guys think about that carefully, right? Now then, this is what you guys don't get. In terms of the black pill, look, if you guys aren't trying to if you're not trying to take care of yourself, work out a little bit, run, walk, like you see me doing some of my videos, walking in circles, I don't really want to hear any of this trash about genuine desire. You're not making any effort to take care of yourself. So why do you have such a big mouth in terms of looks? Well, I want her to like me for genuine desire, burning desire. No one says you got to have a perfect body. No one says you have to have a perfect face. But it should be obvious that a guy that weighs 300 pounds, for the most part, you shouldn't be trying to execute mode 1 hardcore. This is where the self-awareness comes into play. We all know if we have extreme charisma or we're very funny. We've known that since the time we were little kids. If you've been told since you're a little kid that you have extreme charisma, you might be able to be charming enough, have the confidence to try to execute mode 1 hardcore. Like I said, go to the top right of this flow chart later on, tomorrow, whatever. Review the list of things that I told you guys that you need to go through first before you even consider going down that route of mode 1 hardcore. Like I said, when it comes to this flow chart and this video, the point was to give guys information in terms of breaking down the logic as to why Alan Roger Currie is the greatest of all time. I never said this principle is easy to execute. There's a reason he was an expert and other people are not. It's just that simple. In terms of does mode 1 so-called work, this is what a lot of you guys don't get, and I'm going to address it in the future. But when it comes to the so-called working comment that everyone makes about mode 1 and this one, it does not matter who you are. Regardless, you're going to get rejected the vast majority of time by the majority of women that you ever hit on. No matter how many times Alan Roger Currie would explain this, the whole goal of mode 1 was to efficiently so-called set aside, get rid of the women that were not going to deal with you in a sexual manner. I will be explaining this further in the future because we would be here all night if I started having this discussion. Now, like I said, here's the thing. Look, when it comes to this concept, like I've said before, and this is very important. Look, you got to remember, Mode 1, the book, came out in 1999. So he was 36 years old in 1999. What that really means is he was developing his philosophy, Mode 1 philosophy, during the 80s and early 90s, before there was the internet. We all know that as time has gone on, women have got pickier and pickier and pickier in terms of looks. Okay? So you can logically conclude that back then, women were not as picky. But this is a question I have for you guys. The reality is a lot of guys, they didn't like them because they're like, well, it's easy for you to say, Mode 1 hardcore. You got model looks. You're light skinned. You're Tyrone. So yeah. And this is a question I have for you dudes. If it was so easy for so-called Tyrone to get laid, why did he have to come up with such a complex strategy, i.e. Mode 1, in order to deal with women in a better way, in a more efficient way? If Alan Roger Currie was just going around slaying a bunch of dime pieces, why did he have to come up with Mode 1? This is a question I have for you black pillars, and really a lot of people that really hated Alan Roger Currie. The answer to the quiz is, regardless of who you are, you're going to get rejected a bunch. And I knew that by bringing this topic up, it would get a lot of people in their feelings. The whole point of being a content creator is to be presenting ideas and logic and thought leadership that is not commonly said. That's the whole point, even if you ruffle some feathers, right? Now, when it comes to the social awareness, like we were talking about, you know, you guys that had, especially you black pillars that have a bunch of criticism for the Mode 1 hardcore, if you guys need to be told to not attempt mode 1 hardcore at Walmart when you got 17 people behind you in line with the cashier telling her, hey baby, I want you to cream a bunch, cream all over my face. Yeah, let's go to the restroom. Let's go to customer service. Under the counter. And you can cream all over my face with your cooter juices. Yeah. And then you can hop on my eggplant. You guys need some social awareness. It should be obvious that you're not going to do that. That you shouldn't do that. Right? And that's the thing about it. Some of you guys just need to read the book. Or just quit talking about him. Quit talking about Alan Roger Currie. Read the book. Whatever. The whole point of this flowchart was to break down the logic behind Mode 1 Hardcore and how it is tied to everything that this space has ever talked about. Like I talked about in a non-historic short, I talked about how Alan Roger Currie's philosophy is all-encompassing. And then we arrived to this historic flowchart, this historic full video, and I broke it down. That's what I've been doing during this whole video. Now, when it comes to myself, well, I'm mode 2. I like dealing with women in a more vague, ambiguous way. I like taking women on dates. Alan Roger Currie, for something casual, he didn't like taking women on dates. He didn't believe in taking women on dates. He believed in being militant about being mode 1. In real life, during the first conversation, making them give him an up or down vote as to if they were going to allow him to. Myself, and this is what a lot of guys don't get. A lot of guys are like, especially in the black manosphere, man, this guy, he spends a lot of time jacking off Alan Roger Currie. The comical part is that I actually don't agree with a lot of the stuff in his philosophy. I'll keep it simple, and then I'm going to address this later in the video. But the thing about it is, one of the biggest flaws with Mode 1 is how complex and how advanced it is. That's all I'm going to say for now. And my thing is, Alan Roger Currie was his own man, and I myself, I am my own man. So it should be obvious that he and I were going to have different philosophies. We just don't see the world the same way in terms of women. That's just the reality behind it. I have my own philosophy. Okay? Now, let's move on to the next part of the chart. All right, so now we got to our favorite little buddy. The 80-20 rule, the so-called rule. Now, before I say anything else, you notice it goes back, the little pretty line. It goes back to Mode 1 Hardcore. I'll say this straight from the jump. A major component, just like anything else, when Alan Roger Currie would attempt to execute Mode 1 Hardcore, he was trying to find out if the woman saw him as a so-called sexual alpha. Like I said earlier, all that really means, as I define it, is a male. Okay? A male who usually gets sex from a woman easily without having to provide any or very few resources. In general. Okay? So was the woman gonna give him XXX right away or not? That's what he was trying to find out when he executed Mode 1 Hardcore. Obviously, the other component was, did she see him as a so-called beta? A beta of all kinds. Now, you notice the flowchart focuses on the so-called concept of sexual beta. Right? A male who gets sex, usually infrequently, from a woman, mostly only because he provides resources for said woman. Okay? That's the whole concept, a major concept, a major principle behind the 80-20 rule. Does a woman see you as a so-called sexual alpha or a sexual beta? Is she getting with you, messing with you because she's actually sexually attracted to you, or she is not? Okay? So let me summarize it real quick. The 80-20 rule comes from a 2009 OkCupid so-called study, quote-unquote study, from their website. It was not from an app. It was from their website. This is important. Back in the days, it wasn't as easy. And remember, this is not the formal 80-20 rule video I will be doing in the future. Okay? But in general, the rule, what it means is more or less that 80% of women find more or less roundabouts 20% of men attractive. Okay? Now, before I say anything else, we're going to define attractive here in a little bit. Before I say anything else, who women find sexually attractive, physically attractive, looks, we're going to make those distinctions in a little bit, does not necessarily mean the percentage of men that they're actually sleeping with. A lot of guys mess this up. I don't understand why they make this so difficult. Once I hear someone mess up the so-called 80-20 rule and they don't understand it on a basic level, much less a very complicated elite level, I really start questioning their understanding of women. If she is not sexually attracted to you, if she does not see you as part of her so-called top 20%, well, why is she sleeping with you? Because of resources. She sees you outside the top 20%, her top 20%. In other words, if she didn't settle down with a so-called sexual alpha, okay, well, she got with the beta, a sexual beta, a guy she is only going to be having sex with, in general, for resources. So just in a couple minutes, the conversation got extremely complicated. And this is a big reason why I don't like the words alpha and beta. There's too many different meanings behind them. They're real vague. Okay? They're toxic terms in a lot of ways. So here's the thing. When it comes to these principles, when it comes to the 80-20 rule, you got to remember it was the photos that women were analyzing on a website, not an app, on OkCupid.com. So whether they were rating all these different men, right? That's what they were doing. And that's what the study found. Now, what I would tell you guys, you got to remember, the Face app and all these different things where you could alter the photos and touch them up, it wasn't as easy to do back then. At the end of the day, I have always said it, and I always will say it, looks is the main component of sexual attractiveness. Sexual attractiveness is extremely complicated. Sapiosexual is a real thing. There have been a bunch of women, call it arrogant, call it whatever you want to call it. There have been women that have told me straight up, well, one of the main reasons I slept with you is because I think you're intelligent. And it doesn't really matter why, because it triggers an element in their primitive brain. Okay, well, if we get in some problems as a couple, in a relationship, as a family, this guy's going to figure out a way to bail us out with his intelligence. It doesn't really matter what the reason is. But the point is, these women, okay, the main reason they were finding these guys attractive in the study, the so-called study, it was mainly based off photos. Yes, that's true. But the problem is, when it comes to looks, and as we've talked about, I'm going to keep it simple. These black pillars will make it way more complicated. But in terms of my simple definition, looks equals height plus body plus face. The problem is, if these guys didn't put photos of their body, you can only make so many conclusions based off pictures of their faces. A lot of guys, especially the black pillars, well, you can figure out if they're in shape or not just by looking at the face. Yes or no. Most of the time I would agree, but sometimes I would not agree. In terms of the height, that's difficult to really ascertain based on photos. Depending on the app, depending on the website back then. Some of them included a part where you could put your height. Some people would lie. At the end of the day, you got to remember, women know within seconds if they're attracted to a guy. How do you wish to define it? Sexual attractiveness, physical attractiveness, looks? It's extremely complicated. And this is why Alan Roger Currie, one of the main reasons he's the greatest of all time. If you sit there and you really and truly sit down and read the definitions of Mode 1 Hardcore, Mode 1, Mode 1.5, especially those three, there's time ranges as to when you should try to execute it. The different modes. Those time ranges are put in there because there's levels to how much a woman can determine in terms of her attractiveness towards you. Okay, you're giving her a couple more minutes for her to decide if she's attracted to you. You're conversating with her. She's getting a more sense for your personality, your intelligence. Okay, it goes beyond, a little bit beyond the more primal, the straight up lust. You start adding up the other components. That's what she starts ascertaining based on y'all's brief conversation. Alan Roger Currie understood all that before any of these clowns in psychology today with their blue pill trash. What a surprise. On the article, they do whatever it takes to avoid saying resources or looks or status, anything physical. One of the biggest pieces of trash I've ever come across when it comes to these type of conversations, which is why I screenshot it and put it in this flowchart. They do a disservice when they don't tell the whole picture as to why people choose. Because at the end of the day, yes, the point, a major component of the 80-20 rule is a real simple conclusion. Women are way more vicious in judging men's looks than the reverse, contrary to what we've been taught in society since we were little kids. Right? That's just the truth. Now, let me use this example real quick. So here's the thing. Some of you guys think this so-called rule is absolute, especially you guys that are black pillars. So let me keep it real simple. Let's say there's a room of 3 women and 100 men. And each of the women, independently of each other, by themselves, they had to choose their 20 most attractive men who they find to be the most attractive in the room. Their so-called top 20. They wouldn't have conversations with these guys. They would just look them up and down, and they would figure out who their top 20 are independently. It goes back to the whole complicated discussion as to, okay, are we talking about sexual attractiveness, physical attractiveness? Are we calling it looks? At the end of the day, I would call it sexual attractiveness, with looks being the primary component of sexual attractiveness. That is how I have historically put it in my videos. Okay? At the end of the day, these women would not choose the same exact 20 men. There would be significant overlap. 15 men, 16 men, 17 men. Yes, I will concede that point. But you guys out there that think it would be the same exact 20 men across the board being chosen by the 3 women, you're beyond help. Okay? You're taking this stuff to an extreme. The real answer to the quiz is you do whatever it takes to find the women that see you as part of their top 20%. This is why I tell you guys, especially nowadays with dating apps and social media and women's delusional standards, you're going to have to work volume if you want to meet a decent looking woman to date and spend time with. A lot of you guys are trying to do whatever it takes to avoid working volume. I'm sorry. It's not my fault. It's not other content creators' fault that society is the way it is. All you can do is deal with it. And that's what I would tell you guys. Now, let me say this, and then we'll continue the video. So, this conversation, it leads back to one of the most elite talking points in this entire video. Like I said before, Alan Roger Currie, he developed his philosophy in the 1980s, the early 1990s. He was 36 when Mode 1 was released, the first ebook in 1999. Okay, so just think about the logic of when he would have established his philosophy. A decade before that, 7 years before that, 14 years before that, he was adapting, fixing, perfecting his philosophy. Now, why does that matter? Okay, so nowadays, like I was saying earlier, it is obvious that women are viciously picky nowadays when it comes to who they deal with in terms of men. Back then, they were so-called less picky because they didn't have the internet, right? And they weren't in a society where they were pumped up with all this stuff, being told they're super duper special, like they're told nowadays, in terms of women. In other words, all you dudes out there that are always talking about all this Chad and Tyrone, all this other junk, the reality is a lot of people, I have to reiterate this in a bunch of different parts of this video, if it was so easy for Alan Roger Currie to get laid because he was a light-skinned black man that was handsome, why did he have to come up with a complex strategy to get laid and to filter out the women that were just going to waste his time and use him for attention, float the possibility of sex in front of him, women that just wanted to use him for resources, women that weren't actually attracted to him in any real way. They didn't see him as a so-called sexual alpha. Well, the answer to the quiz is women are viciously picky regardless of who you are. Nowhere in any of my videos do I say it is not easier for so-called Chad to get women. What I do say is he's not doing as well as you guys think. The guy isn't hitting 20 three-pointers out of 20 attempts. He is not running through so-called dime pieces easily. I've proven this time and time again in my videos. The only thing that matters, like I've said before, in endless conversations all over my videos and on different channels, the only thing that matters is what is the truth. Nothing else matters. The space has some flaws in the information it puts out. That's what I came for. That's what my channel was established for. The whole point of Alan Roger Currie's philosophy, a major portion of it, with respect to Mode 1 Hardcore, the truth was, like I said earlier, the guy had a pathological obsession, more than I do, because I'm pretty up there as well. But the guy had a pathological obsession with trying to deal only with women that were sexually attracted to him and were going to give him sex. Okay? For the so-called right reasons. He didn't want to be dealing with women that were going to be wasting his time, leading him on, floating the possibility of sex in his face, or even women that just wanted to have him around in order to pay their bills, but not actually to the point where they weren't actually sexually attracted to him. In other words, a sexual beta. Okay, yeah. There's men out there, a big portion of the male population. Okay, they get sex, but they're getting very little sex from their women because those women, they never wanted to be with them in the first place. They just got with them for so-called resources. You notice on the flow chart, that's the whole logic right there. It either breaks out to either being the sexual alpha or the sexual beta. That's what he was trying to determine with mode 1 hardcore. A lot of you guys out there, when I've said this before, you guys probably thought I was joking when I said that Alan Roger Currie's philosophy was all encompassing. You are seeing it in this flow chart. There was never anyone on his level when he was alive. There's no one on his level right now. No content creator that is on his level right now. And there will never, ever be any content creator on his level. Because remember, this is essentially just part 1. When I covered the possibility of sex earlier in the video, I didn't even review the whole book. I didn't even review the whole logic behind it. I just summarized it. I summarized it for the purposes of tying it back to mode 1 hardcore. Now, like I was saying, and I'm going to repeat it right now. Let me get to the bottom left of the flow chart, the so-called flaws of mode 1 hardcore. As you can see by this video, it is extremely elite, expert level stuff. One of the most elite, expert concepts, one of the most infamous, notorious concepts in the history of the Manosphere. That's why I call it historic. That's why this video is historic. I guess people thought that I was joking. You guys that have been listening to me talk about ARC, I think I made it clear why I've always big upped him. Now then, a lot of you guys, the only thing you have to do is eat the meat and spit out the bones. Like I said earlier, the title of his book says Mode 1. It does not say Mode 1 Hardcore. This is where a lot of people, when they would attack Alan Roger Currie, they would get him confused. Mode 1 versus Mode 1 Hardcore. A lot of guys out there, they think they're attacking Mode 1 when they're really attacking Mode 1 Hardcore. However, Mode 1 is still extremely, extremely advanced stuff. Don't get me wrong. His entire philosophy is very complicated. It is very elite. In fairness to the critics of Alan Roger Currie, Alan Roger Currie couldn't be talking about how advanced his philosophy is, because if he did, he would be essentially undermining his own self. Well, if I tell these guys that this stuff is real advanced, they're not going to read my books, they're not going to come to me for consultations, and they're not going to try to learn my philosophy. Okay, now let me go ahead and say this because this is really important. I'm sure he thought about it. I'm sure he thought about, okay, well, I'll do Mode 1 Lite. I'll do a new addition to Mode 1. Mode 1, spacebar, LITE. Adopted to the digital age. But I'm sure he didn't do it because he would have been undermining his core philosophy of Mode 1. Like I said before, Mode 1 Hardcore, his philosophy has to be applied. Mode 1.5, it needs to be applied in real life. The vocal tonality, the reading of body language, backwards and forwards, right? You reading hers, the woman reading your body language, adjusting your behavior to it. Your sense of smell. Okay, that's part of attraction. A woman smelling your body, the smell that your body, your natural smell that is unique to yourself. That stuff cannot be ascertained online, on Instagram or Facebook or Tinder, whatever. You telling a woman on Instagram, hey baby, come over here to my house and I'm going to cream on your face. Oh yeah, baby, come over so I can cream on your face. That is not mode 1 hardcore. It has to be done in real life. There's a difference. There's a difference. There's a difference. It's not the same thing. Okay? With respect to that same concept, yes, it's true. You need extensive experience, location, situational awareness, elite social skills, verbal tonality, and how you go about it, your understanding of body language, charisma, call it whatever you want to call it, mouthpiece game. Like I said, the vast majority of men out there in the world, you should never attempt it. This is top tier, some of the most elite stuff you could ever carry out. There's a reason he was the expert and other people are not the experts. A lot of people, they never understood his philosophy because it was extremely advanced stuff. He was the NBA All-Star over there doing crossovers into a spin move, into a reverse dunk, over the head of Michael Jordan. This stuff is extremely complicated, extremely elite. Like I said, the only thing, the whole logic behind it, all you had to do is read his books, watch his videos, and for lack of a better phrase, humble yourself and really understand the logic behind mode 1 and then adapt some of the concepts to your own philosophy, your own unique philosophy in how you deal with women. There's a bunch of elements to my philosophy that is very unique. Like I've said before, a lot of this stuff, in terms of mode 1 and all that stuff, I myself, I don't agree with it. A major reason I don't agree with it, because the stuff is extremely advanced. Okay? I'm just being honest with you. Now, I do adopt some so-called mode 1 light concepts in how I deal with women. But in terms of Alan Roger Currie, he would always say you can't mix the two. You're either direct or indirect with women. And the reality is he would say some of that as self-interest. Okay, well, I'm going to tell these guys you got to be straight up direct. Otherwise, if I say that people can mix it, they're not going to buy my books. They're not going to listen to what I have to say. For the most part, he would say it out of self-interest, in my opinion. But there is some truth to what he's saying as well. In terms of so-called work better for handsome men, now, if you guys need to be told, if you think it's special, if you don't think it's obvious, the most beautiful women, let's start off with the women. It's obvious, it should be obvious, that the most beautiful women in the world, they have more power over men. They're going to be able to get a higher status man if they want such a man. They'll be able to get so-called more resources from men because they're gorgeous. Now, flip the script in the other direction. It should be obvious that if a guy is very attractive to women, they're going to make it easier for such a man to sleep with them. Okay? Nowhere in any of my videos do I say it is not easier for so-called Chad, for very attractive men. Nowhere in my videos do I say it's not easier for them to get sex. What I do say is, it is not as easy as you guys think. Even if you're very attractive as a man, you're still going to get rejected a bunch by women. Okay? And we're going to talk about that some more here in a little bit. Like I said, the method has to be applied in real life. Mode 1 hardcore. If you're not trying to execute it in real life, it is not mode 1 hardcore. Now, the very bottom one, like I would say in other parts of this video, Alan Roger Currie respected what I had to say. That is just the truth. He and I had some discussions in the comment section. He took what I said seriously on women, on female nature, on dating, call it whatever you want to call it. He would pin my comments to the top of his live videos. So one time I had a mini debate with him. I said, well, let's say you approach a woman, and this is what I was telling him, because this was one of my criticisms. Let's say you approach a woman and you decide, okay, I'm going to try to execute mode 1 hardcore or even mode 1. Because it's such a short time frame, and remember, women know within the first couple seconds if they're sexually attracted to you. In general, we talked about it earlier in the video. What I just said is a major principle behind mode 1 hardcore. Alan Roger Currie understood this a long time before all these clowns were on the internet talking about it. When Alan Roger Currie was developing his philosophy during the 1980s, early 1990s, the internet did not exist. In the 1980s and the early 1990s, when Alan Roger Currie was developing his philosophy, the internet did not exist. So this is what I told him. Okay, so what happens if you approach a woman and you try to execute mode 1 hardcore or mode 1, but because you didn't have too much time to really learn about her, you really and truly try to execute it on a woman that's prude, that does that across the board with pretty much all men. In other words, and I'm not saying that's the only component of a woman that would be so-called wifey material, but what I said is there are some women out there that are straight up prudes. If you're super forward with them, they would blow you off, no matter how attractive they think you are. Now, what he said is in response, well, if you really know what you're doing, that wouldn't happen. No, that's not true. You can only find out so much information in the first couple seconds, the first couple minutes of a woman. You can't sit there and bet her heavily in terms of, okay, is she wifey material or is she just going to be a casual pump and dump, for lack of a better phrase? Yes, in general, men do know pretty soon after meeting a woman if she is so-called girlfriend material. But there's a bunch of stuff that you need to find out about a woman. It takes a while to vet her. I'm not going to talk about it today, but what's really ironic, Alan Roger Currie, when he met his wife, it wasn't mode 1, it was in mode 1 hardcore. Which is really ironic, right? Now let's get to the summary of this video. Like I was saying, Alan Roger Currie's philosophy is all-encompassing. This is what a lot of people don't get. It doesn't matter what you think about. It doesn't matter what sector, what subsector, the manosphere you think of. All that stuff ties back down to mode 1 hardcore. Alan Roger Currie, he understood female nature at an elite level before anyone thought to utter the phrase in the manosphere. He was extremely, viciously red pill before anyone ever uttered the phrase online. He had black pill elements to his philosophy before anyone ever thought to come up with the phrase in the manosphere. Review this video 29 times. Watch how all the lines, they all go back to mode 1 hardcore. He figured out how to outsmart female nature. A lot of people, the problem is, the vast majority of people that have ever criticized him, they would never take his philosophy to the logical conclusions. Okay, if this woman is not giving me sex right away or at all, what does she see me as? She sees me as a beta. Okay? If she's not giving it to me right away and she's stringing me along, trying to get me to prove myself to her, the vast majority of time she sees me as a beta. Okay, I'm going to make this guy work for it. This guy's going to jump through 29 hoops. Okay, he made $30,000 this year for the family, or $30,000 this month for the family. And then by the end of the year, he made $360,000 for the family. Okay, whatever, I'll give him sex. I'll give him sex once every 7 weeks. She really and truly isn't giving you sex in the truest sense of the word. She essentially sees you as a sexual beta. She's only giving you sex to keep the resources coming. I'm sorry. That's just the reality behind it. Alan Roger Currie, he had an obsession with filtering out, trying to filter out the women that saw him as a beta. That's just the reality behind it. Review the flow chart. Take your time. Pinch, use your fingers, pinch in and out, and carefully read the logic of the flow chart. Like I said, there's a difference. There's levels to this game. There's critics and there's solutions. A lot of people in the Black Manosphere, they always hear me call Tommy Sotomayor Tammy. Tammy spends a bunch of time jacking himself off, talking about how sometimes he was the founder of the Black Manosphere, sometimes he wasn't, sometimes he talks about how he influenced the whole space, sometimes he's calling the Black Manosphere a bunch of clowns, and a bunch of other names. The first thing I would tell him, anyone can sit there and run their mouths about women, call them names, and really go in on them. What did Alan Roger Currie teach men? What does his philosophy teach men? How to outsmart women. How to outsmart female nature. There's a difference. Anyone can be a critic. There's solutions, and then there's critics. You need to understand Alan Roger Currie's philosophy backwards and forwards. Read all his books. Download all his videos. You're making a big mistake. There's no one on his level. There never was anyone on his level when he was alive. There's no one on his level today, currently alive, and there never ever will be anyone on his level. Remember, this is part 1 of what's to come, of 2, 3, 4 more videos when it focuses on this concept of mode 1 hardcore. And then there will be dozens of other videos that cover other components, smaller components of his philosophy. So like I said, Alan Roger Currie, he was the founder of the Manosphere. A lot of people think, well, this guy just says it because his book Mode 1 came out in 1999. What a clown. This guy thinks he's so smart. Yeah, he just looked at the years these books were released. And yeah, that's what makes him the founder. No, 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 no. Look at the chart. Look at the logic. Alan Roger Currie's concept, Mode 1 Hardcore, an extremely advanced elite concept. With that one concept alone, it covered pretty much everything in the history of the Manosphere. That's why it is so elite. And that's the thing about it. He didn't plagiarize his stuff. He developed his own philosophy before the internet became a thing. There weren't other content creators of the Manosphere because the Manosphere, as we understand it today, did not exist. Okay? In terms of labels, a lot of you guys, you are obsessed with labels. The reality behind it, if Alan Roger Currie never had the label of dating coach, he would be way more highly regarded. Like I said before, in one of my most historic videos on my channel, all Manosphere content creators are dating coaches. If you don't understand the logic behind that statement, you have a very long ways to go. It's all tied together. The macro, the micro, the one-on-one versus what's going on in society as a whole. If you don't understand both, you cannot do well with women. If you're going overseas, passport bros, at the end of the day, you made the decision to do that because of what's going on the macro level in society, which eventually trickles down to the micro on the one-to-one basis with women. So you take off to another country and you're going to date women over there. You still need to deal with women on a one-to-one basis. I don't know why people make this so complicated, but I understand it for what it is. A lot of guys out there have egos. You can either figure this stuff out on your own, or you can sit there and get on Amazon.com and start ordering all the books of Adam Roger Currie. If you don't read all his books, you're making a big mistake. All right, that's all I'm going to say when it comes to that. Now then, we got to the main event. So the main event is females, both the audience and the content creators, the female content creators and the female audience, what have been their contributions to the space? Basically nothing. How can they contribute to the space when one guy, one man, demolished the vast majority of content creators by himself? That one man being Alan Roger Currie. He understood female nature before anyone came up with the stupid phrase. Females operate out of self-interest. Red Pill 101. These women do not come to the space to help men. They come to run interference. They come to troll. They come here to run their mouths. They really and truly think they're going to shut down, for lack of a better word, this movement. Now, like I said before, and I'll keep saying it, roundabouts 80 to 90% of the stuff you hear in the space is true. Some of it's not true. Some of it's inaccurate. Some of it's incomplete. However you want to phrase it. One of the major things that's flawed, obviously I keep saying it because it's true, the 80-20 rule, so-called rule, in terms of the so-called body count of women. And what percentage of women sleep around? A lot of guys can't really pinpoint it in any accurate way. That video, like I said before, I will be releasing it in the future. It is an extremely complicated video, just like the 80-20 rule. So that video is not going to come by anytime soon. You guys have to be patient. Now, before I end this video, women, they could, in theory, they could contribute to the space. If they tried really hard, there could be some females out there that could help complete the puzzle of this stuff. But they're not going to do it. The unfortunate reality is, in terms of how women view men in general, most men are invisible to them. Which essentially means, in an indirect way, that they see most men as betas. And I hate to use those stupid words, but there is no other way to put it. That's why, in general, a lot of women don't care about this stuff. Because they take for granted what the so-called quote-unquote betas have done for them, which is build the infrastructure, build this world for them, made their lives easier, protect them, indirectly or directly, provide so-called resources for them, built this economy, built this country. They take it for granted. And that's a major reason women act the way they do, and a major reason they disrespect men, especially in the West, because men made their lives so easy. Okay? So like I said, when it comes to these females, I don't need your input. I won't be dropping any links for you. You're not on my level. You never were on my level. You currently are not on my level. I proved it with one video. I proved it with this one flowchart. None of you women can do what I just did. None, zero, nada, zilch. Now, why would I drop the link for you clowns that just want to run your mouths? You just want to troll. You think I'm going to drop the link? You think I'm going to take your so-called orders to drop the link when there's nothing you can contribute to this conversation? You think you're going to sit there and try to bully me? There's a reason. And then I'm done with this video. I think at this point, it has become clear why I have always said there's a lot of people that don't know what they're talking about. If you can't contribute something unique to the space like I did, that you've never seen before, that you never will see before, that you've never seen before, that you never will see again, something just completely unique to the space, that is just out of this world, like, wow, this is amazing stuff. because I know this flowchart is super elite. There's a good chance that person has plagiarized a bunch of stuff and they don't know what they're talking about. Now, the problem with that is, and then this video is done, the problem with that is, if you have someone that's pretty much plagiarized the vast majority of stuff and they never can contribute anything unique to the space, what that really means is, even if they're plagiarizing a lot of this stuff, what that really means is they don't know what they're talking about. If they don't know what they're talking about, they're leading you astray, because some of the stuff that they're plagiarizing is not accurate. So they are plagiarizing inaccurate information, and then they're feeding you inaccurate information. Because if they knew what they were talking about, the information they would be presenting to you would be more accurate than the inaccurate plagiarized information, if that makes sense. So if you got a guy that doesn't know what he's talking about and he's a content creator and he plagiarized the so-called 80-20 rule, there's a 99% chance that he plagiarized the 80-20 rule, a wrong interpretation of the 80-20 rule. That's the reason why a lot of people mess up that rule, because they're plagiarizing a misinterpretation of the rule in the first place. Like Alan Roger Currie would say, I just need to listen to someone talk about women for a little bit, and I know if they have a bunch of experience with women or not, or even a moderate amount of experience. Like I said, the reason I did this video, because Alan Roger Currie did have an issue with people commenting on his Mode 1 philosophy. Like I said, he respected what I had to say on dating, female nature. That's just the truth. I have a bunch of screenshots of the conversations that he and I would have, which is why I did this video. I want his legacy to continue. I want people to respect what he has to say. As I build this channel, I will be doing more videos that big ups him. And I think I made it clear with this video why he is so elite and why he is the greatest of all time. Not the greatest dating coach of all time, just the flat out greatest content creator of all time in any sector of the manosphere. So remember, having said all that, outsmart female nature, or female nature will outsmart you. Until next time, peace out.
Still came 5 on the charts with 0 audience. The lane was open and y'all was dropping that garbage shit. Y'all got awards for your bricks. It got good to you. You started telling the bigger dogs to call it quits.
These niggas is out here dropping like flies. Stuck in the trap, you can get caught up wherever you at. Hollywood, gangsta heaven, and I know Wally good. If I could, I'd go back in time to the neighborhood.
Woke up with 50 enemies plotting my death. All 50 seeing visions of me shot in the chest. Couldn't rest, no nigga, I was stressed. Had me creeping round corners, homies sleeping in my vest.
A couple wicked rhymes that I wrote really helped the nigga shine with my foes. This nigga I was broke, but easy heard us go, and easy said, whoa, y'all niggas dope, fly niggas low, fly killer flow, y'all finna blow. Come on and let's live, try to stay, got to stay.